Are you still waiting for your stimulus money? Or maybe you received it and you've already spent it? Well, you're in luck. Today we're going to discuss 4 new proposals for more stimulus that are right around the corner. You're not going to want to miss it. But before we get started, make sure to give this video a like so we can get it in front of more people. Now let's get started. So welcome back. Now let's talk about our first proposed stimulus, the Emergency Monies for the People's Act. This is a stimulus that was proposed by Representative Ro Khanna and Tim Ryan. What it outlines is that if you are an American that earns less than $130,000 a year and you're over the age of 16, you will receive $2,000 in stimulus money for at least 6 months, and it can be extended as long as we're above pre-crisis unemployment levels. If you file your tax return jointly as a married couple, you guys can actually claim $4,000 a month as long as your income is under $260,000 a year. And it doesn't stop there. If you earn more than that, it'll be reduced slightly for every $1,000 you make above that. And if you're a dependent and you've been claimed by someone, you can still qualify for getting the $2,000 a month. But it just keeps getting better. If you haven't filed your 2018 or 2019 tax return, it's not a problem. You can still collect the money even though those tax returns have not been filed. So let me just give you an example. Let's just say you're a 16-year-old kid and your parents claim you as their dependent. You can now start receiving $2,000 a month. And you can also receive that money on Cash App, Venmo, debit cards. It's getting that crazy. I can't believe they're even thinking about this, but you know what? I can tell you right now, I know a 16-year-old will go out there and put that money to use right away. They're not saving that money. What could a 16-year-old kid possibly spend $2,000 a month on? Probably Starbucks. Shout out to Starbucks. If this sounds like wishful thinking, well, it currently is just that. In order for something like this to go into effect, it has to get voted on by both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And then the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has to sign off on it with his blessing. If not, then it has to go back and get reworked for him to then look at it a second time. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. Our next proposal is the Automatic Boost to the Communities Act. Now you're gonna have to forgive me because there's no way I'm going to remember these names. Congresswomen Rashida Tlaib, Pramila Jayapal, Rashida Tlaib, and Pramila Jayapal. You don't know how many times it took me to remember those names. But now that we're over that, what this does in effect is the following. So the way this would work is that you would receive a $2,000 one-time payment, followed up by a monthly $1,000 payment to every person over the age of 16, no matter whether you're a dependent and no matter your legal status in this country. And if it needs to go over the 12-month period, it certainly can. Now, the craziest part about it is that they're considering creating a cryptocurrency in order to be able to make these payments, which would be issued through a debit card that the government will give every person in this country. What is cryptocurrency? Well, I'm not an expert, so I'm going to explain to you the way that I was told. So what it is basically currency that's interacted between two different parties electronically over the internet, but that currency is backed by different nodes or different computers that have
7 hours later.
good faith of the United States. So it's about time that we back it against something that's a little bit, I would say, more reputable, but this cryptocurrency will be backed by the dollar. So it's kind of weird. I don't even think they understand what they're doing, but let's see what happens. Now, how are they going to pay for this? Well, it's simple. They're going to create $1 trillion platinum coins. Yes, never heard of such a thing, but this is a way for them to not have to create new debt. They would just create these coins and basically the nation would be funding its own creation of money. This happened before when Abraham Lincoln was in office and he created what was called the greenback. Didn't end too well for Abraham Lincoln, but let's see what happens this time around. Next, we have our first Republican-sponsored proposal. Senator Mitt Romney has actually proposed Patriot Pay. The problem stems from employees actually making more money on unemployment than they actually did when they were working, especially essential workers. So he created this in order for essential workers to get back to work. So what his plan outlines is that any employee who is considered to be a frontline worker or an essential worker making less than $50,000 a year would receive up to $12 extra per hour for the months of May, June, and July. So a frontline worker would be someone that works at the grocery store, a firefighter, a police officer, EMT, or even if you're a dancing TikTok nurse. It doesn't matter. As long as you've been going to work and you're essential for business, you could qualify for it as long as you make under $50,000. Now, if you make more than $50,000, you'll get what's called a credit. So you'll get a credit on your taxes at the end of the year. So if you owe money, then you won't have to pay as much. Or if you don't owe any money, you'll get more money back from the government at that time. Now, the reason why he's doing this is because a lot of employees have actually decided to stay home because they're actually making more on unemployment than they would be while being employed. And this poses a problem. So this is what he's trying to address. Now, I don't know how popular this is going to be among some of these employees or among some of the Democratic leaders that we have in office. Now, the last thing we want to do is domesticate our population into just staying at home and collecting money from the government. That's not going to end well. We're going to definitely see a socialistic society if we keep going that path. Now, I like to see a little mix of both, maybe just getting some upfront stimulus money so we can get the wheels turning again, but we also need a solution to get our people back to work and to stay back at work and to get compensated correctly for being at work and not getting compensated more for being at home. But it does sound like a Republican solution for the problem that we have at hand. Representative Ilhan Omar has introduced the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. The way this works is in the following manner. If you're a renter, you don't have to pay your rent anymore, and it's not going to be pushed back to a later date. It's actually completely forgiven. If you own a home and it's your primary residence, then you also don't have to make your mortgage payments, and you don't have to pay for it later on. On top of that, you will not have any negative reporting on your credit report. And the reason it's important to have that is because people are claiming that right now, as they're filing for forbearances, they're actually getting that reported to their credit. And on top of that, all that money is being due after the 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. And that's a problem. That's a ticking time bomb, because what it's going to cause is a huge foreclosure crisis later on. Because just think about it. If you owe 1 month of mortgage, it's pretty easy to pay off. But 3 months from now, if you think you're going to get your job back, or you think you're going to be in a better place and you're not, now you have 3 mortgage payments that are due at one shot. And most people are not going to have that money. You may have $2,000 laying around right now that you could possibly squeeze off one mortgage payment, but later on, $6,000 or maybe $20,000, depending how long you wait, is an impossibility. So we want to make sure that parts of this proposal actually should stick to whatever act passes, but we don't want all of these things. And let me explain to you why. If you're a renter, this proposal makes total sense. But if you're a real estate investor and you have homes that are actually cash flowing for you, this is not a good thing. The reason why is because your tenants no longer have to pay for the rent, but you still have mortgages. Now, it doesn't really specify what happens in these cases, but I will tell you one thing. Even if it does cover investors, what it doesn't cover is any cash flow. What cash flow is the excess of money that you make after your expenses are paid. So you're still going to have to pay for your taxes. You're still going to have to pay for your insurance. If you own a condo, you're going to have to pay for the maintenance fees. So we are still going to have expenses. And I say we because I'm an active real estate investor, but your tenant who is occupying the unit doesn't have to pay anything at all. So what this basically is encouraging people to do is go out there and rent a $10,000, $20,000, $40,000 luxury villa, and you don't have to pay for that for the next year. That doesn't make too much sense to me. Now, this proposal is set to take place for an entire year. And if you made your April mortgage payment or your April rent payment, then you're actually going to have to get that money reimbursed. So if you're a landlord who doesn't really have any money right now because most of your tenants are not paying you or some haven't made the payments yet, you're going to find a way to get that money and put it back in the hands of your tenants. That's a very unfair proposition if you ask me.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
All of you investors or anyone who holds any type of real estate assets should definitely be cautious about this rent freeze and mortgage freeze or forgiveness or cancellation. Whatever they're calling it, it doesn't make a difference. All I know, it is a huge land grab. They're going to be taking our properties from us. I can already see it. They want to make sure that we forgive the tenants, but we're not going to be forgiven for a lot of other things such as taxes and insurance. Okay. So I do have to give them some credit. They did think about you if you're a landlord or an investor. And what they have done is they've actually created or want to create a fund through HUD, which says that if you're feeling the pain of not getting any cash flow, we got your back. What you can do is you can tap into this huge fund that we're going to put together. And if you take any of their money, you're going to be under their jurisdiction and their policies for the next 5 years. And it gets better. If you decide to sell your home, they have the first right of refusal to buy your property from you. To me, it sounds like a huge land grab. What that means is that if you want to sell your house later on and you can get $500,000 for it or $1 million for it, but HUD only wants to give you $700,000 or $300,000, depending on what they feel it's worth, that's all you're gonna get. That is a terrible idea. I know some of you are not a fan of President Trump, and I'm not saying I'm a fan either. I'm neutral. I don't really care. But what I am saying is that President Trump is a real estate guy. He's not going to allow something like this to happen. At least I don't think so. What this is essentially doing is it's giving the government the ability to take your property, because I will guarantee you this. If you take the money now and your tenants don't have to pay you, and if you do rent out units, they have to be at a certain price, what's going to happen is you're going to end up losing that property down the line. And when you do lose it, guess who's standing in line with an offer for you? Yep, HUD. And they're going to steal the property from you. And then what they're going to do then is they're going to be putting it out for rent. This is not right. This sounds to me like socialism, communism. This is taking people's private property and knowing that that's going to be the outcome. They're setting us up for failure. So if you have anything to say about this proposition, leave it down below in the comments. I know a lot of my viewing audience is in real estate, so I'm very curious to see what you have to say about this proposal. I'm not a fan of it at all. So let us know, out of all of these 4 propositions, which one is your favorite? Which one do you hate? Leave it down below in the comments. And if we like your comment, if we think your comment is the best one, after 7 days, we will send you some Culture Estate gear. So make sure you leave us your best comment. It'll get voted up. I can't wait to see what you guys think about this one. I'm personally a little bit nervous, also a little bit scared about what might come out of this, but I do think since we have a Republican president, I don't think we're gonna see so much of the land grabbing or maybe the property taking. That doesn't seem to be the United States that I know and love. But leave it down below in the comments and let me know what you think about it. And hey, you might win some gear. So let's see what happens. We're in the process of creating the largest real estate group across the entire United States. If you're in real estate or you're thinking about getting your license, I'd love to talk to you. I'm gonna leave a link down below in the description section where you can schedule a one-on-one call with me.